in the early 90s, the only way that you could become a member of the Findhorn Foundation was to do a certain amount of set programs. Of course, you would have had to have done the Experience Week, and that was then followed by a DG Week, which is a Departmental Guest program. After doing that, you then applied to do an LCG program, and that was a Living in Community Guest program. And you were asked to commit yourself to doing that for 3 months. And each month that you could choose to work in a different department, so that you moved around if you wanted to. I think for all of my 3 months I worked in the kitchen, and spent most of... No, that's not true. I first of all worked in the dining room, and then after working in the dining room I then moved to the kitchen, and I think I spent the last 2 months of my LCG program in the kitchen. In the park I went, so that meant that I lived in the park. The park at the foundation is the accommodation consists of caravans and bungalows, and at one time I think I lived in a small little house with 4 other people. So there was 5 of us living in this tiny little house, and with a shared kitchen and a shared bathroom. And I had the smallest of the bedrooms, because the others were either married or there were 2 women. So I had this tiny little bedroom. But it was fine. I was quite happy there, and it was okay for me to be there. After doing the 3-month living in the guest program, you could then apply to become a community apprentice program. It was called CAP at the time, and that meant that you committed yourself to being in the foundation for 2 years. And of course, all the time that you're doing all these programs, you actually had to pay your way. And that seemed to be very strange for a lot of people, that they had to pay to be there. For me, I didn't have too much trouble with that, because I felt, well, if I was living out in the world, so to speak, then I would have to be paying my way anyhow, so why not pay there as well? I think for me I had to sell quite a few bits and pieces to be able to get the money together to do the programs. When it came to applying to do the CAP program, it was kind of interesting, because I went for my interview, and they asked me, you know, all sorts of questions, why I wanted to be there, and of course it very much depended on your answer, whether they accepted you or not, or whether they believed that you really needed to be in the community. Of course, I had a little bit of a trump card, because I still had my letter of acceptance into membership from 1979. So here I was in the early 90s saying, well, I'm afraid you don't have a choice, you have to accept me, because here's my letter. I think that they probably would have accepted me even though I still had this letter. So having been accepted, then one had to go away and wait for the next intake. And the next intake, as far as I remember, was in September or October. And so I went back again to Wales and stayed there for a short period of time, and then eventually moved back to Findhorn to take up my community apprenticeship program. Yeah, and of course one had to find the money for that, and at that particular time I had no money at all, and so they took me on trust that eventually I would be able to pay my way. I actually can't remember the full amount of money that you had to have. Somewhere in my head it seemed to me that for the 2-year program one had to have around £2,500 to £3,000. I think it depended on what sort of status that your work had been and whether you had money or not. But anyhow, I got accepted, and they said, well, you can pay that whenever your money comes available. And so here I was back at the Findhorn Foundation, and wondering what on earth this CAP program was going to be like. And I'm going to stop here now, because I want the CAP program to become just very much an entity on its own. So I'll talk more about that in my next video.